friends. Welcome to the Normalizing Average podcast. Join us as we dive into the stories behind the people who have overcome setbacks to achieve success, celebrating the average moments on the path to extraordinary results. Let's go. Okay, welcome guys. This is the Normalizing Average podcast, and I am Eve Duke, your host. I am here with Jen and Mark Barron. So Mark and Jen are the duo behind Integrated Apparel and Somewon Collective. While Integrated does screen printing, embroidery, vinyl heat press, stickers, banners, and graphic design, Somewon Collective is a lifestyle clothing brand, which I love, and I think everybody who lives or has been to Revelstoke loves, centered around the life well lived here in the mountains. From Mark starting his business in the 20s, it has now grown to a team of designers, printers, and support staff providing for brands across North America. It's my pleasure to dive into the business behind printing and clothing with the Barons. Hey guys. I love a good dream team, as you guys know. So let's dive in. So let's start, we usually start all of our shows with a little bit of the history behind how you got here, where you started. So Mark, Mark, do you guys want to kind of tell us where everything began?
Yeah, I guess I can start. We can start at the fairly beginning, the earliest days of it. Realistically, I first started kind of making our own clothing kind of towards the tail end of high school. Basically, when you kind of start getting into a little bit of your own style and want your own pieces of clothing. We had a group of, I was based out of Calgary at the time, went to high school in Calgary, and we had a good group of snowboarders that we hung out with and friends that we would travel to the mountains with and, go for the weekend and stay in hotels and do all of that stuff. So it was kind of a group road trip mission. And eventually we just kind of started, putting our own names and little designs on shirts that we wanted for ourselves. So we do that. And the first round, I think we got somebody else to print, but dealing with screen printers at that time we found kind of difficult. So we thought, hey, it can't be that hard to make your own t-shirts, right? It's just t-shirts. So we started making a couple. I teamed up with a friend of mine at the time, and he was a good decade or so older than me. So him and I got a little screen press together and worked out of his mom's garage. And we first started making our own designs, and we made them for ourselves. And then more friends wanted them, so we had to make some more t-shirts. And then it kind of snowballed a little bit from there. So we ran that. I kind of did that little project with him from about 2000 to about 2007 or so. And then at that time, like I said, he was a fair amount older than I was. So I was getting into university. He was moving on with his life, career, wife, stuff like that. So I thought, no, I want to keep this going. Got my own screen press, put it in my garage that we had in the old college bunkhouse there. So yeah, put a screen press in my garage in Calgary, and started printing t-shirts for friends, bands, and stuff like that, and school groups and things like that. So that was how we kind of first started the business kind of side of it, and that was back in about 2007 is when we kind of I decided that, well, I like the idea of making clothes, and I've been doing it for 5-7 years at the time, and wanted to kind of take it more seriously. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's how it kind of started. Kind of made that decision to say, yes, I want to give this a try.
Yeah.
So that was how that's
not like growing up in like the snowboard, like with snowboard industry and snowboard and skater friends. Yeah, there seems to be like in every kind of like pocket, and like somebody who starts a clothing brand and starts printing for people. But there's a big step, like usually those always fall by the wayside. It's like maybe a college project or something like that, or they kind of try and continue it on and it doesn't make it. So yeah, so how did it continue on past that to become like the business of your life?
Yeah, for sure. Well, like I guess it was a passion for me. It was something that I really had a lot of fun with. One of the reasons I did it and chose t-shirts of all the things, it's not that I'm super into t-shirts, and I'm not artistic at all, right? So I wasn't really creating many of the designs for these things. Clothing was a great unifier, basically, right? Everybody needs to wear clothes, right? So whether you're printing for snowboard t-shirts or skateboard t-shirts or band t-shirts or whatever, right? It was always something that you could kind of pull big groups of people together, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why are we having this party with all these people? Well, we're giving away t-shirts, that was a reason. do things like that, right? Like the t-shirts. So, you know, you make t-shirts, you make stickers, you get a couple of hats. And then, so that was part of the passion for me was kind of bringing people together, usually in some form of small event based thing, right? Rock shows or parties or snowboard trips or whatever. So that was the like that's what I kind of like to do, that part of things, right? So
I think the pivotal point from when this became a hobby passion project to an actual business was moving the business from Calgary to Revelstoke. Back in back in the day of, the early 2010s, we kind of moved here at the end of 2009-ish.
yeah, we
And
moved the press out here in 2010, which was our first shop.
And that was kind of the change for everything. Back then in Revelstoke, there wasn't the job base there is now. There wasn't the tourism industry there was now. There wasn't a lot of the services that we have now. And a lot of people that kind of came around that time, they all started their own businesses here, whether it was electricians or snowboard rental shops or restaurants or tourism companies. They kind of all started their businesses at the same time. And we were one of those businesses. We started a screen printing company here. And there was definitely a need for it here, and it's grown by a lot over the years. But that was, I think, the pivotal moment from side passion project to real business.
It also starts getting a lot more real when you have to start paying like real rents and things like that. Like it's fine to run stuff in your basement or your garage, but when you're spending, $800, $1,000, $1,200, $1,800 a month on rent, you're like, wow, we got some real bills now. So it's like, you got to get down to business, right? You can't just do it casually. So, so that straightened us up quite a bit, when you want to get a place, okay, well, can we take this on? At the time, like I said, like Jen said, there wasn't a whole lot of industry or, much of an economy going on in Revelstoke, right? There was kind of the standard life back then was the boyfriends worked out of town or up north or wherever, and the girlfriends worked at the bars and the restaurants, right?
Yeah.
And you have to work at 2 or 3 restaurants to make a life of it, right? So that was part of it. I mean, at that time, I worked out of town. Jen worked at a lot of the some of the restaurants in town, right? And so we were putting our efforts into the company, right? So I was gone I worked out of town for a good part of 8 years or so. So Jen was kind of the anchor in town that was always around to talk to people and answer the phones and answer the email, and be here. But at that time, it was still kind of our side project for sure, right? Since gone so much. It got, and like Jen said, as the, more clients came from 2010 to 2015, each year we grew a little bit and a little bit more. And as you grow, you have to add staff and space. And these are all things that we had to learn about.
First rental space in Revelstoke was a 600 square foot, maybe 800 square feet shop above the ski rental place. And it was tiny. We crammed so many boxes, and there was like a maze of boxes with just enough room for the prep in the middle to spin.
Yeah.
And we got up there and we're like, we don't need all this space. Within a year, we'd outgrown it.
Yeah.
And then we moved into a warehouse in Big Eddy. We don't need all this space. And then within 2 to 3 years, we'd outgrown it. We moved to a shop downtown. We're like, we will never outgrow this space. And 2 3 years later, we were looking for a bigger space. So just continually acquiring more inventory.
It's funny how much space you can use up when you have it, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think was part of that as you were growing, was that also an incentivizer for you guys to go out and like increase the revenue as well? So it's like, okay, let's upgrade our space, but we're also going to have to hustle again and like go through that next almost like steps, right, of business growth. So it's like you have X amount of customers that can fit. You're in the Big Eddy, you're in the shop, in the warehouse there. And it's like, okay, if we're going to go pay the rent downtown, get the space downtown, then we need to go and get X amount of more clients. Like, did you think of it like that?
In a way, but I was just kind of starting to get there, like with my own financial management of the company, right? For the, definitely the first, say, 5 or so years of it, you're kind of in that maybe immature business owner part or inexperienced one where you're kind of just thinking, you're like, okay, more work the better. You're like, let's go get more jobs, more revenue, and that'll solve all our problems, right? So we chased that for quite a while, and we liked working hard, so it was good. Let's go get more and more and more. But then then we found out that's not the total answer to a business, is just more
Mhm.
revenue, right? So again, it was one of those things of mostly learning, like paying a lot of attention and learning, what's going on with your business and the money of your business. There was definitely a handful of years that we'd work hard all year, and then you come up for breath at the end of the year, and your accountant gives you your year end, and you're like, how the hell did we still lose money? Like, we've never worked harder. How could we lose money? Like, does it make any sense? So again, then it's kind of back to the drawing board. You're like, what are we figuring, or what do we need to figure out? What are we missing?
Mhm.
And paying more attention to those types of things.
What do you think were those key levers for your business for profitability?
That's a good question. Not sure. Like, um,
We went through a time. It was a really big pivotal point for our company, I feel. I was coming off of mat leave after our firstborn, so this would have been in about 2017.
mhm,
And we were going to make a push, and we wanted to push and grow. And for us to grow, we thought that we needed more staff. When you
Mhm.
have more staff, you can produce more. When you have more staff, you have more people, making money for your company. And it ended up being a lot of the opposite. Like, we ended up hiring, I think, 3 or 4 staff within the span of a couple months. And not only were we all working on top of each other, but there were people with outset roles that were not being efficient, and we
Mhm.
were paying so much out in staff that it made us not profitable. And that was a huge
Yeah.
learning experience for us, to be able to know, okay, how many people do you need? What salary, what pay do we have to, budget for to still be able to be profitable?
Mhm.
And how much profits do we have to make? How much revenue do we have to make to be able to afford another staff member? And that was a costly but huge learning step for us, of how we can afford to have staff, and what those roles of the staff are going to do, and how we're going to be able to fit them in with our company, and how they're going to make us money.
Mhm.
yeah, it definitely was a big learning curve for that one, because, like, yeah, Jet said, you figure you get more people, you make more money, or you can produce more stuff and sell more stuff, you'll make more money, right? And not always the case.
Yeah.
We learned that we were spending too much on staff, not producing enough, or at least efficiently enough.
Mhm.
uh, and that's kind of exactly what happened. That's what brought us to probably, like, my biggest reality check and toughest year of my life was probably 2019. And that's when that real learning kicked in, right? Like, and I said, that was about 10 years worth of trying and learning,
Mhm.
and doing what we thought we should be doing. And we paid attention to our business, and we figured we were on the right track. But when those numbers really come in, that's when you see it. And when it's your money being spent and blown and wasted, and it's a year worth of your work, and I tell people, like, for ours, in 2019, like, probably never worked harder and never had more stress on me. And I think we lost $34,000 that year.
Yeah.
Like, how does this happen? What are we missing? So that's where that kind of kicked in. It was like, okay, we need to let's break this down right back down to the basics of Jen and I,
Yeah.
and let's start this again. And not that we start the whole company again, but we canned a lot of expenses, got back down to basics, and then kind of started rebuilding or regrowing on a better track.
Yeah.
I knew more. I learned my mistakes from then. And it's like, okay, so now we can start fixing this.
Mhm.
And I'd say we find, like, and 2019 was like that. And 2020, by the time 2020 rolled around and the numbers came in, it was like, okay, we are on the right track. Like,
Yeah.
probably the best I've ever felt in our business was probably February 2020.
Which is crazy.
Son of a gun, I get again, like, luckily we've had to do this a few times as you're starting your business, right? You get to get slammed down to the bottom. So we were familiar with that spot. But at least it felt good. By that, I was like, okay, we are on the right track. Now we just have to deal with the nonsense. But the structure, the framework of our company is there, and we are on the right track now. So
Mhm.
then scaling became a little bit easier. I was better at my job. I was better at financial management. I feel like I learned, and I was better at managing staff as well.
We had a lot more processes within our company set up by the start of 2012. 2020. By the start of 2020, we did have lots of processes, and those processes cut down on errors and mistakes and waste, and it streamlined all of the productivity where we became more efficient without having to do, all the bonus stuff that caused us to slow down before that. So the processes, that building time really set us up for kind of being able to level up to the next stage.
Yeah.
If you were to advise somebody, what would be the first person that you would hire in your business? So if you have, let's say you already have your two roles covered,
Oh, okay.
what would be, if you were to start from scratch, what would be the first hire you would do? Like, would it be an extra printer? Would it be an admin? Would it be
Production person?
For us,
Yeah.
for us, what helped us, because like I said, when we break it down to the basics of the company, sure, like Jen and I by ourselves could run a pretty decent, profitable but small company. But then us doing all the work forever, right? Which isn't obviously
I guess
cool
we
either.
can look at our roles too. Like I do almost all of the sales, so I'd probably do 90% of the sales, some small admin, just business running stuff, and that's my role here. Before we added our administrator and our full-time production person, we had worked in every role. So when I started the company, I learned how to silk screen, I learned how to make stickers, I learned how to embroider, I graphic design, I did all of our bookkeeping, all of our admin, all of our, setting up health benefits, payroll, everything. So I know how to do everything in the company. Mark also, he knows all the production, he can train people, he does that, he does sales, he does all of our financial management. So we have the base knowledge to do everything by ourselves. When you take away our need to do production, it gives us time to sell and manage our business. So that was definitely the first role. Mark still does a little bit of production and less now, but adding someone, the first role to add into a business is a producer. They're the ones that are going to help you make money. I can't make money unless I have someone physically back there to make the shirts. And that's definitely the most probably important role in our business besides Mark and I, is the production people.
And then from there, it's kind of like scaling in a way, right? Like once I got off the press, okay, well, I learned something else, and then I'd build that position up to enough where we're like, okay, let's put someone in that position, and then I move to the next step, and you'll learn that. And then that's kind of how we've gone for these last few years, where I still have to fill in here and there, but once we get enough of that type of business, or once we can train a person up to a certain level, then you're like, okay, great, plug that person in, and then move on to the next step. And that's been our process.
And after hiring our production manager, the next hire was our administrative assistant or executive admin, and that took all of the additional stuff that I was doing, like the payroll, the bookkeeping, the managing of the building, the running of the office,
shipping.
Shipping.
Shipping takes a long time. It takes a
once
chunk of your day.
That was taken off my plate, then that gave me the ability to sell more. And when I get to sell more, I get to make sure the production's busy. When the production's busy, we're making money, and the ability to make sure and now we're at the point where everyone's roles are almost maxed out again. Like Nick is fully busy back there. We have an embroidery person that started out as part-time that's slowly moving more and more full-time. Our administrative assistant went from 24 hours a week to nearly 35 to 40 hours a week. So eventually we will be hiring the next person to start filling in the roles that we need help with here.
Yeah, like it's a lot. You want to get the producer in there because at least that like everything that they're doing, it kind of feels like they're making money. Whereas the admin is such a scary role because they're just servicing the business. Like the business has to support that person, whereas the production person is supporting the business and generating income. A way scarier one, but that also does take you in turn from being inside your business to be able to focus on the business.
The one the admin position does a bunch in here, but for me, it's helped with that bookkeeping, as part of the role, and they stay up to date with it. So, again, when bookkeeping was still on Jen's plate, well, it got moved down the priority list, when she just has to sell, she's got to focus on bringing money in, right? So, and then, before you know it, 3 months go by and 6 months go by and your books aren't up to date, and, you don't know where the company is going. You could be losing money for 3 months or 6 months, you don't know, right? So that role was a gigantic help for me in being able to manage the business, right? Our books are almost up to date weekly, realistically, or at worst case monthly, so it allows it allows me to see where the company's at to help steer, right? And if you
Yeah,
don't know where you're going, it's pretty tough to to steer.
totally. Well, otherwise, like you might just be, it's like the guy in the engine room just like shoveling coal. And you're like,
Totally.
I hope this is working because I'm shoveling
Yeah.
coal. And it's like, little do you know, you're just like going around in circles around the ocean.
Oh, totally. And
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah, my analogy that I use for myself is, like driving in a car, same kind of thing, right? Well, it's great if you're just like, pedal to the metal and you're flying down the highway, but if you don't know where you're going or how much gas you have in your car, like,
Yeah.
what good is just driving, and you're driving, and I don't want to be working for the sake of working, obviously, we're not here just to work harder forever.
And then so what would be for you guys, what would be the next role that you would bring in just to stay on the staffing thing? Would it be another production person? Probably,
We're
like, do you almost just like start that cycle over again?
We have a graphic designer starting in January, not an in-house one, but he does live in town here, and that's going to be a huge help. As we do have clients that come to us without artwork or that want something new, or some of our bigger retail clients that constantly add new designs and stuff, we'll have someone we can draw from, which will be fantastic. And we're currently hiring a sales person
Yeah.
to work with me.
Yeah.
We're at the point now where I can't fully service all my clients. In the ones that we do have, I'd like to focus on and grow. That's where the best money comes from. Like the best value for the money that we make is by growing clients and not adding new clients. Adding a new client takes up a lot of time. Growing existing clients is a lot easier and a lot better and easier for me to do. So I'd like to be able to focus on the clients we have while still servicing new clients, and a new salesperson is going to be able to do that for us.
Yeah. And then let's talk about how the business is, like just how you run basically like a print business. And we kind of talked about this offline a little bit, but yeah, like you can even break it down for us. Like, where do you get all your stuff? How do you do quality control? Mark, I know you've done trips to China. Do you want to talk about that? Do you guys want to talk about that side of the business and how you, just like stepped in and grew that and figured that out?
There's a few facets of our business that we have currently. Integrated Enterprises is kind of our umbrella company that has all of our other companies underneath it. Integrated Enterprises has Integrated Apparel, which is our in-house branding, screen printing, embroidery, everything like that. Then we've got Somewon Collective, which is our brand. We create a lot of our Somewon Collective clothing overseas in China. We've got a few factories we work with. We do a lot of the branding in-house with screen printing and embroidery, and then we sell to retailers and online across Canada and the United States. And then we also have a blank clothing company. That was an offshoot of Somewon Collective. We started manufacturing clothing back in 2010 in China. We can talk about where we got started on that. But when we started creating this clothing back in 2010, we were finding new fabrics, new fits. We were being able to customize the blank clothing to what we wanted, which was, sometimes a longer fit, sometimes a little bit different sizing, better women's sizing. And we took the Somewon stuff that we were branding and pretty much wiped all the logos off of it and created a blank line that we now sell through Integrated as blank hemp, blank cotton poly hoodies, t-shirts, etc.
Yeah. And that's because over the years you guys have refined, like it's not like you're going to China and you're just like picking from a rack. You're like, I'll take this hoodie and this t-shirt. It's like you're actually have created the t-shirt, the cuts that you want, the fabrics that you want, the colors that you want. And then because those have now been almost like vetted, you have this like awesome clothing line that other people can also brand as well. That they know that they're going to get the quality that's already been sourced by you guys.
And we've used our contacts in China to then create clothing for other people. We've got clients in, a big snowboard brand in the United States, or it's kind of a snowboard store. And they do their own custom branded clothing. And we've started creating their own clothing based on the Somewon sizing and fit and everything in their own fabric colors with their own prints. And so we do custom branding, custom OEM for other clients in our factories in China.
Yeah, we've been making stuff there since, like Jen said, 2010. I started going to China 2010 to 2009. So we got to go to the factories and we got to go to the fabric markets, like we produce in China there, and our factory is only about an hour away from the biggest clothing or the biggest fabric market in the world, right? So it's a good, it's a good place to be, right?
Mark had a very unique ability to go to China back in 2010, we both went to university for things that have nothing to do with clothing. Mark is a geologist. I'm a geographer, which I've never. I sell T-shirts now.
That's
But
all of us, yeah, like using the heck out of our university degrees. Thanks, yeah.
Mark did geology for about 8 years, from 2009 to about 2017, 18. And he went to China for the first few years of that, and he was working in mining in China. So when he would come back, he would stop in and, find some contacts through online searching, and, we get samples and stuff like that. And then he had the opportunity to actually go to these factories and meet these salespeople and actually get an idea of where our clothing was being made. And that was a huge bonus for starting out, figuring out how to navigate the Chinese factory system.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool to have that opportunity. And since then, even after doing geo, Mark's been back 3 times.
Yeah.
And I've gone once with him. And it's really, really cool to be able to go over there and meet our salespeople and see the factories and see where our clothing's being made. And yeah.
It's good. And it allowed me to create almost create a role that I've wanted kind of for myself for like even a long time. Like even when like I said, around 2006, 7-ish, when we were getting the idea of, okay, we wanted to do this Somewon thing, I did internet checking and calling whatever contacts I could to be like, why isn't there somebody like in Canada that can like be my connection to China? Like why does this exist? Like why can't I call up a Canadian guy and be like, hey, I need some custom production, like real custom production, not just a screen printed Gildan t-shirt. Like, and at that time, at least anyways, I couldn't find that person. It didn't really seem to exist. So it was, it's kind of been on my mind since about 2006 or 7, right? So having this then, and then diving into it, working with someone, and someone's basically kind of like our R&D project. It allowed us to, to create that position now, which exists, which now that is part of our service of our company, right? Like if you want the direct connection to China, you can call us and we can, we can help get all that fancy fun stuff made for you. So the long-term goal of mine, and it's been good to have it as part of our company and part of our business, and happy to offer it as a service. And it's kind of a fun creative part of it, right? It's not just getting your standard t-shirt that you get from all the regular North American suppliers. Well, you get to get creative.
Oh, it's so cool. And like for me, being on a complete outsider and never having done any sort of like product-based business, it's like, where do you even start? It's like you just call China and you're like, hey, I need to talk to a factory. I don't know. Like there's a lot going on,
It's trial and error.
Yeah.
Some of the regular, business, examples still hold true to China. Like you want to find someone that you work with, you want to find someone you communicate well with you and in a timely manner. And you basically want to start building that trust, right? It definitely doesn't come from, the first phone call you make to people or emails, right? It takes a bit of trial and error, right? And we've definitely worked with ones that didn't make a good product for us, or money wasn't well spent, it turned out, and errors happen, and these things happen. There's not a lot of repercussion to, when someone in a factory in China messes things up. That's just how the cookie crumbles. You got to deal with it, move on. So yeah, you try and you win some, you lose some.
You waste a lot of money.
Yeah, realistically, once you get with the good people, then it's a normal business relationship. That's really not a whole lot different from anyone dealing with anyone in North America, right? You work well with them, you work in a timely manner, and you trust each other, and then you can get good stuff made. So took a little time, took a little spending, but comes around.
Do you think you could have formed the relationships that you have now without going there?
I don't.
I think
now is
a little bit easier. You can go on Alibaba, you can search for these companies. They all have websites now. Back when we started doing this in 2009, our companies didn't have websites.
The Chinese companies did not have English websites for the most part back then, right? Or like,
and even then, Googling them wouldn't bring you the Chinese sites. Like there is a disconnect from North American Googling and searching and finding these sites. They don't show up on your search pages.
Yeah.
Alibaba has been a massive help to connecting North American businesses with the Chinese counterparts. And that's allowed us to find some good suppliers. And then it's kind of a trial and error from there of which ones you go with, and samples, lots of samples.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of time. That's part of the process with this,
Time.
just jump in and can you have this in a month? Like, honestly, when I'm building a new line for people, I'll tell them it usually takes almost a year to get the first round, really the way you wanted it in your hands and ready to sell. It does takes a lot of planning and timing. So
Hmm.
that's part of it, a lot of the planning.
Yeah.
Shipping.
Yeah. And then how long did it take for you guys, do you feel like, to nail that? It was
We
like
still
a
have
couple of years. Yeah.
Years. Yeah, I got good
We'll let you know. Yeah.
5 or so years. Yeah, at least 5 years it takes.
there's still always, I don't think you can necessarily always nail anything. Like we had an order this year for one of our main clients, and another smaller but excellent client was kind of tagged in on this China order. All the branding and everything was done for the big client, and we had custom hang labels, custom size labels, custom branding, everything like that. And then the additional kind of tack on of the order was for a smaller client, and all of their hoodies showed up with the correct branding, but all with the other client's tags in the back. So we spent hours stitch ripping all of the tags out and then heat pressing new tags in for the client, because you can't get, a logo in the back of a PF Chang's t-shirt. Like it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can't prop brand like that. And there's always a lot of times, because there is a language barrier, there's a time barrier, there is a lot of barriers between, us and China. And a lot of the times we do have mistakes like that happen. We've had to garbage a lot of clothing, donatable and stuff. We have donated as much as we can. We, one year got a bunch of ladies Somewon hoodies that were so small I couldn't wear them. So now there are youth giveaways, and all the kids you have to get creative sometimes, so you're not wasting stuff, you're not wasting money, you're not wasting clothing, you're not wasting resources. And there's a lot of creativity in this industry, not just for putting logos on
Not just
clothes.
artwork.
Yeah.
Get creative with how you're making them, how you're doing them, if you can fix things that are broken, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Would you say probably like the label one, is that your one of the biggest, like, just like China fails?
No, that one was fairly
That one was fixable. Yeah.
They sent us a bunch of jackets in about 2011, 2012, ladies' jackets, and the buttons fell off of all of them. So we had to hire Mark's mom to resew all of these buttons onto jackets, because you seriously put them on, you put the button through and it'd go pop, and the button was gone. So
Oh my God. Yeah.
that one was a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like how many units are you talking about? Like, are there like, yeah.
100.
Oh my gosh.
We might have some kicking around if you want.
So let's go back to 2019, because it seems like it was a really pivotal time for you guys. What were like some of the key things that you did end up doing there? Is it like, did you let go of staff? Did you was it refining staff roles? Was it like even just changing your system around ordering and what clients you took on? What were the really key things that you had to change that made a difference to where you are now?
The biggest ones were, we had to do a staffing change.
Before that happened, we had baby number 2 on the way in 2019. So I was out of the picture. I wasn't in a full sales role before I went on my second mat leave. But I was more in an administrative role with some sales on the side. But going into about a month before we were supposed to have our second, we did a massive staff change. We had to let go of our main salesperson. He wasn't working out.
He was with us for 3 years or so, 3.5 years. It was when, like I said, I started to realize that financially, maybe after the first quarter of 2019 or so, he was like, when I got the books back from 2018, you're like, all right, some changes need to happen here. We have to do something. So we made some staffing changes, and then we basically, like I said, we kind of broke it down to the basics, where I just said, I got to work, and I'll have to do everything I can, as much as I can, and whatever I couldn't, unfortunately, got unloaded to Jen, even with a brand new baby in her hands, right? Where like, Jen, like, we need you to come back, and you got to get back to work, right?
My leave was pretty much non-existent with number 2. I was within less than 3 months in, I was back here, and I had a baby swing behind my desk, and I had people come and take her for walks so I could get a couple hours of work in. And, losing that person, it seems like even looking back on it now, I'm like, what were we thinking firing this person going into my mat leave? Because there was no one here to do anything in the front end. But our environment in here was turning a little bit toxic. I didn't like in here. Our other staff members didn't. We had another part-time admin person. She didn't like working here. One of the guys in the back, they'd always butt heads. We had, a lot of issues around that. And the monetary, like the financial aspects of letting this person go and the culture aspect ended up being a great decision.
Yeah.
And it definitely kind of set us into the right trajectory. Me coming back on mat leave was tough, but it definitely set us up for success in the later 2019 and 2020.
Well, it was that point that we needed to do better, right? And even with Jen coming back, she's like, basically like, we need more processes in here. She kind of said like, I'm not coming back unless we're going to get better at this, like I'm not just coming back to work forever and for nothing, right? Like if we're going to do this, let's start doing this a better way. And that was that timeline, that 20-year with, 2019, with everything being so crazy. And that's where we just took, had to take even harder looks at the business and, find those little things that weren't working. What did we need to? So yeah, we took our payroll back down, so the company could, do a little better, survive a little more. We still weren't really paying ourselves at that time. Maybe Jen got a little bit. I certainly wasn't. But we had to kind of break it back down to like cover those bases again, and then get on that right track, and then slowly start building again. But the staff one and the culture, and for me, like money management and even staff management too. I'd never really been in a role where I had to manage staff. Like as a geologist, I was out doing my things and doing my work and stuff like that. It was great. I could write reports and, do science and communicate with people, but dealing with people and their lives and in work on a day-to-day basis wasn't really part of my skill set.
Thing that I think Mark has maybe blocked out or forgets about 2019 is, he went to the doctor and he's like, something's up. I feel like I can't, my heart's always palpitating. Like I feel like there's something wrong. And, he up to EKG machines for a week to figure out what was going on. And it was stress, anxiety, and, the pressure of, trying to push this business into the next stage. And I think that kind of pivotal moment of, fixing our staffing issue, having a baby, pushing this company to go the right way, we really realized that there has to be a work-life balance. And that's probably one of the biggest things that's come out of 2019 is, figuring out a way to balance the stress and the pressure of a growing, insanely busy business with kids and a house to run and, still enjoying our life outside of this building kind of thing. And I think we started taking it seriously in 2019 that, you can't be at work every night until 7:00. You can't 7 a.m. every day, turning this place off and still being able to have a life and enjoy it is worth more than, the couple extra hours of being here and working.
Yep.
It's a big stress too, because then you're also at the same time, like you're balancing supporting a family with also trying not to lose your family, which anybody who's run, if there's even one person in the household, like, and I can attest to this, like who runs their own business, it can like, you can do it all day long, like take it home with you, like wake up with it. It's like your mistress, right? And then there's a balance there. And then but it also, we all know, any entrepreneur knows how much it takes to push through to that next level. Because can be easy to just stay on the hamster wheel and be like, oh, darn it. Like, or just, if you get to a comfortable point, but it's really hard to fire that staff person to say, and like to make those sacrifices to be able to push through the next level. And you guys have kudos to you guys, massive, massive props, because you've made it. And do you feel like there's a little bit more room for breathing room now? Yeah.
That sacrifice in 2019 and learning in staffing in the 2017, moving into a new building, learning what we did in 2019, running a business through a pandemic, maybe one of the best and worst things to happen to us, but not a bad thing in the end. I think one of the best things to come out of the pandemic was the loan from the government, the $60,000 government cuts, because that helped us. Every year at this time, we stress ourselves to the max. September to December is our busiest time period. We have to have retail orders out, staff uniforms out. Everyone wants their stuff before the season starts, before the ski hill opens, before winter hits. So we get insanely busy, and we'll strap ourselves to cash. We run our whole business on cash. We don't have credit with any of our suppliers or anything like that. So to go into the season with no money, we'd be reaching out to our parents. We'd be like, we need that $50,000 again to get us through to the RMR order. And, always paying them back, by January kind of thing. But with that little bit of money from the government, we didn't have to do that. And we've turned that over so many times with, purchasing inventory from China and being able to then sell that inventory, purchase more. We've turned it over so many times that it's invaluable. And I think we'd still be in a good position, but I think that extra help with a lot less stress on the bank account was a massive help to getting us to where we are now. And even being able to slow down a little bit during COVID, like our tourism companies that we do a lot of tourism stuff for, those really slowed down, and it gave us a little bit of time to regroup, figuring out our processes, where we're going to be spending our money. It was a stretch during that time to get stock. And from toques to black hoodies to t-shirts, like
black t-shirts, black hoodies, and black toques would sell out of Canada. The whole country would be basically out of them. Each of the 2020, 21, and now 22, it's finally getting a little bit better. But for a good while there, I was just bringing in blank clothing from China because at least we could have clothing to sell then, and that, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to. It's great if someone walks in and wants to order 50 hoodies, but if they're not available, then it doesn't do anybody any good, right? So Jen, that extra whatever, the government money for the COVID, it did help us for things like that. It allowed us to stay operating, actually, and allowed us to grow a little bit. So it was good, and it was good to see that that the company did work, and that we were on the right track, and the processes did work. And then with a little bit of capital injection, it's like, okay, now we can kind of get moving, right? So that was a big help, and that helped put us on the right track. And now that's kind of how we roll with stuff. So it was
I think last year was really stressful. It was kind of one of the first winter kind of turned back on. People were starting to come back to Revelstoke. It did start getting busier for us last winter, and I was so stressed out. Nick, our production manager in the back, and he knew I was having a bad day, and he looks at me, he's like, Jen, no one ever died because they didn't get their t-shirts. I was like, oh, right, they're just it's I've definitely taken a different approach to it this year, and not letting the stress take over, and realizing no one's going to die if they don't get their t-shirts, and being realistic with clients, being like, hey, this is our busiest time of year. You're on my list, and as soon as I have some space available, I will put you into the queue to get your order in. And people understand, people get it, and it's been a different approach this year that's been a lot less stressful for everyone involved.
And it's an expectation set for them too. It's like, you could order your stuff months in advance if you want, but it's like, if you're, and this is going to be the same with any supplier, any business service, is that the closer you get to the deadline, the harder it's going to be, or the more expensive it's going to be. What it is, it's like the good, fast, and cheap
and
rule, and quick. Yeah. You can have two, you can't have three.
Good fast and cheap.
It's unicorn.
You can have a good and fast, it won't be cheap. But and people, I think, also don't necessarily realize that, like, it's a hugely capital intensive business. Like, you have to pay for all the inventory. It's not just like they put in their order and then that's it. It's like, you guys have to front that, right?
And hundreds of thousands of dollars fronting clothes, right? And it's numbers get kind of ridiculous sometimes when you look at the bank account. You're like, holy moly, like how did we spend $500,000 so quickly already this year? Like, we're not even halfway through. Like, these numbers are big, and to us, small business and small families and even small towns, you're like, what the heck is going on here? But it, it's kind of wild, but when it's working, it's okay. I have faith in it, but yeah, otherwise I'd be, be scary at times. But yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
a lot of money being spent.
Hmm. And then what about you guys? How have you guys worked together and developed your working relationship and your roles over the years? Was there some friction there, or was it kind of like easy to settle in to where you are now?
Don't know what couples talk about when they don't work together.
Yeah.
We don't always
They talk about their
work.
kids. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely we like it. We're passionate about our business. We like where we work. We like our business. We like talking about it. So it always makes us, gives us a good thing something to talk about at home, something to, you know, communicate over, something to bond over to. It's like, oh, that client today, did you hear that? Oh my God, that guy was such a or whatever, we always have that. And we try, our best to leave the drama, if there is any drama at work, and, not have that spill over to our home life. A lot of the time I'll get home and I'll have we sit next to each other. Our desks are 4 feet apart from each other. And come home, pick up the kids, or he'll pick up the kids, and I'll get home and, we'll say like, oh, how was the rest of your day? How was your day? Like, did you have a good day? Because we often don't even really talk about anything that's actually going on because we're so busy working or, doing whatever we're doing in our roles.
Mhm.
And, I'll often ask Mark, like, how's your day today? And the times that we do argue, because it's inevitable, two owners of a business that are as invested as we are, there's going to be spats, there's going to be arguments, there's going to be fights. One time we had a big blowout and it was a slight yelling match at the shop, and home, and I don't want to take it home with you, but Mark gives me a hug, like, oh, it's such a horrible day. My boss was being such an ass. Yeah, was being an ass. Okay, cool. At least we're on the same page.
We don't take the work issues home with us, which is good.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's like Jen said, I think we both have fun doing it. It's a project we both enjoy working on, right? Like it's good for I think in our way, our own personal lives, where we get to grow and do it, and we're challenged, and we get to do all these things. And for the most part, I think we have fun doing it. So that for that part, it's really good. Relationship wise, I don't know, we're probably the same as most people that have, businesses, houses, kids, all that kind of, tend to get higher priority than Jen and I going on date nights. Those don't happen as much as they used to, but yeah, everything's still good.
Kids kind of half grow up here, like days that they can't go to school because either daycare's closed or, PD day, or someone's, too sick to go to school, but not sick enough to come to the shop.
Yeah.
They end up here, and, our kids have toys here and they play here. And oftentimes if I have a client come in with their kid, I'll pull out the toys so we can have a 30-minute conversation about t-shirts. And, our kids are going to be part of this too, which is kind of exciting.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's only a matter of time. Getting close there.
Real work.
Yeah. Robbie
They're
she could peel stickers now. Yeah. Peel
Yeah.
stickers, maybe do some screens.
Exactly.
And then who was it hard for you guys? And I only ask this because this is something that I went through with Scott. We had both come when we ran our business, we'd both run our own companies, and then we really fought for power. And that took a while for us to figure out, okay, who's like at the end of the day, who's running the show for the team, was that something that you guys went through, or was it okay?
I think it was more of Mark wanted me to take on more. Mark wanted me to be the boss, and I didn't think that I would be ready for it, or, have the ability to do that. So it's kind of a little bit opposite, where Mark wanted me to take over and run the business. I think he's kind of a feminist at heart, where he wants to see a woman running a successful business and be there to support me in doing that, or kind of do it together. But I don't think there's ever been a power struggle there.
I'd say for the most part, I mean, like Jen was out of the company for a few years there, like with having kids and stuff like that. So during that time, it wasn't an issue.
I've quit a few times.
Yeah.
I'm out of here. Who's coming with me? Mark, let's go.
But as we've grown, and now as Jen's back for these couple of years, and now Integrated's growing, and Integrated is the main part of our business these days. Jen's kind of running that project for the most part, for running Integrated, and she's the one that works most closely with the staff. And I'm, I guess I'd say I'm probably a little bit more of an entrepreneur than Jen is, so my mind is always sometimes half into the next project that I want to get going, right, or into some of the side projects. So in that way, it gets Jen to she can really focus on the main part of the business, and she can start to take over that role, and really be the foundation of that business, while I kind of have to explore the next steps. And so that's kind of where we're at these days. Is we've always been growing this kind of together, but now that Integrated is functioning fine on its own, this is kind of Jen's project, and she can take and run with this. I'm obviously always there for the support, but then I can start taking the new projects and the Somewons and our hemp clothing line. We started a blank hemp clothing line, that we released a few years ago. So that's something new that needs a lot of attention, but doesn't necessarily make a lot of money yet. We started a couple, like another web store for Revelstoke, shop revelstoke.ca, which again is it's a starting of a project, right? So all what those are like. They all take ton of time and investment in, but they don't function perfectly or profitably for the first little while. So I can still chip away at those things while Jen has the company running smoothly.
And I don't like that aspect of starting new things and growing and developing. Like, I've always loved Integrated because it's kind of got a blueprint of how it's going to run, and there's nothing really crazy that you can do or start, or it's just this nice little company that could fit inside a box pretty much. And Mark is extremely bored with that, and he always wants to do. We had the same accountant for a while, and you would know her too, but every time we'd go in there, it'd be like, okay, so we're starting this new project, and she'd be like, more projects, and like, smart, and talk to Mark about it. And I think that's, once we do hire the next salesperson here, I would eventually like to just get Mark completely away from Integrated and not have to spend as much time in this building doing this stuff, and he could focus on the hemp and the Stoke Life and the Somewon and the OEM production and all that kind of stuff, because that's where his passions lie, and that's what he wants to do. So
well, and that's like, it is a really good, it's so amazing and so awesome to see when a partnership, especially like a husband and wife partnership, works out where you have this like perfect, almost like balance of roles, where you have somebody who, and that's what you need, right? If you had two Marks or two Jens, then the business wouldn't go where it can go and where it's going to go. So it's like, you need both of those roles. And it's so nice, because oftentimes it's like you might have just the one business owner, and they might be the guy who's like, okay, next. And that's where you have a really hard time becoming profitable and refining that business, because there's no, like, somebody needs to like keep things consistent so that they can get refined, exactly like you guys have done. Yeah. And then that also allows Mark some runway to like add, because you also need this influx of like new stuff once everything's stable and it's going. Yeah,
so that part's worked out good. I don't know right now, I think.
Tell us about the hemp business, the hemp clothing line.
So the hemp clothing is something I started kind of manufacturing probably about 5 years ago. So now someone's been making clothes, manufactured its own clothes since 2010. So we're about 12 years of that. But about 5 years ago, I started shifting the line to try and be more focused on hemp. Sustainability has started coming up and being more of a thing. The reason I chose hemp specifically was that we can grow it in Canada. That's the goals, right? So once they kind of, the cannabis legalization stuff, well, that also started to improve the hemp like industry in Canada, right? For all the hemp can provide. In our case, we like the clothing end of it. So rather than go down a whole bunch of different routes or organic cottons or whatever, I wanted to pick something that we could grow in Canada, right? So we're a pretty smart country. We're pretty big. We got the ability to do things. Why can't we make a t-shirt? It seems kind of crazy, right? That's essentially one of the big my projects that I'm working on, which will take years to develop, because essentially right now we don't really have the technology, or we have the technology, but maybe not the ability to do this in Canada. So throughout these last couple of years, I've connected with a bunch of other people that are in the hemp industry in Canada, more on the growing side of things like that. But it's a really interesting one. Things are starting to develop over these few years, and hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years, we can start seeing like hemp clothing made with Canadian grown hemp, Canadian crops, right? Grown right here in Canada. So that, for me, that's one of the reasons I went that route. We wanted a more sustainable option, and that's the one that I chose and I wanted to get into. So that was a lot of fun for me, because it's kind of a same thing. It's a whole new industry for a lot of people. So it's kind of it's an interesting point, right? Everyone's kind of eager to get into it and start working away at that. So that's why we did that. And we just wanted some basics. So we did our, t-shirts and hoodies and stuff like that. So it was easy enough to do that. And then that's where we started moving a lot of our Somewon branded stuff to. But then, like Jen said, also now we basically wiped the logos off to make hemp clothing kind of accessible to pretty much anybody. So we do some for a lot of our clients start using hemp now. They like it. They don't do all their stuff on hemp, which is fine. You want some variety, but it's good. There's blank hemp clothing available now in Canada. So
and then so is that right now, sorry if I missed that, is the hemp clothing made in Canada right now, or that's
no, made in China right now still. So still at our normal factory right now. China's one of the only countries that will grow hemp. A lot of hemp's still illegal in a lot of countries. Like I've talked to manufacturers in India that reached out to us, and I said, okay, great, do you guys do hemp? And they're like, well, no, it's illegal in India to do hemp, so we just have to get it from China anyways. I'm like, well, I'm already kind of getting it from China, so for now, the time being, it's still done in China.
One thing that a lot of people don't know is, people have this idea of China being this horrible communist place with sweatshops and, children that work and sew things. And it's really not. Like, our factory is pretty cool. They've got people like us that work there and, have their offices. It's really cool to see how it's all done. But what people don't understand is that 98% of the fabric in the world is produced in China. So even
physically made there.
Even if you have clothing sewn in India or in Mexico or in Canada, all of that fabric is coming from China. And
interesting.
It's a funny thing when I do have clients come in and they're like, oh, well, we don't want anything made in China. Well, we want we want as locally sourced as possible. I'm like, that's fine, but it doesn't really exist. Like, I hate to tell you, everything comes from China when it comes to fabric and clothing for the most part. Even if it's the fabric that comes, we finally find fabric from some other place. Well, all your zippers, your trim, and your labels are all coming from China anyway. So it's kind of hard to even try and get away from that.
Like they own the market on all of all of all of it. But so is that, so China's growing, just basically growing everything and then building it in-house, like making it in-house, like physically growing, like, I don't know,
not even growing
the
it,
cotton,
like,
the hemp, like the
cotton could come from India and then they ship it to China. China processes everything and makes it into the fabric. Like, all the fabric at some point is being processed or dyed or sewn or whatever in China for the most part.
So is there anything made in Canada? Like, does Canada have like an actual clothing? I guess this is the answer, is like they don't really have in Canada. Does there exist an actual clothing manufacturer where they would
but not on the scale of like, say, blank t-shirts or hoodies. Like they do more things. Like there's a bunch in Quebec, obviously, of clothing manufacturing. There's a bunch in Alberta, but even some of those ones that I've reached out to, they're like, no, we just make coveralls for industry people. Like, so it's not quite on the scale of of, say, t-shirts, where you need tens of thousands of these things.
And we have source factories in Quebec near Montreal and stuff that do make blank clothing, but we find that it's so expensive. We can still make it work. It's expensive, but we can make it work. We have to pay for shipping most of the time on top of it, and the lead times can be 6 months. So you have to plan just like you would in China to do this, but pay double.
And then, so would part of the vision for you, Mark, be that there would be hemp manufacturing hemp clothing being manufactured in Canada.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'd be the goal that I'd like to see is turning Canadian hemp just grown in the prairies for the most part into fabric. And then
Yeah.
once it can be fabric, then because then almost anybody can start up a clothing manufacturing shop or store or whatever, right? Then it's just sewing fabric together, right? So the
Mhm.
difficult part right now is that creating the fabric. That's
Yeah.
that's kind of where everything's stuck right now. Right now, all the hemp we grow in Canada, we essentially do stage one of processing to it and then ship it off to Asia
And
or
then it
Europe.
goes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
it's used like building materials and insulation
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. It's not refined to a fabric level.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And then let's talk about the dream or the vision for integrated apparel. Where do you guys see the company in the future?
That's a interesting one, because I've had to start thinking about that quite heavily in the last, like even just the last year or so, right? As as we get on to the right track, and let's say that track is like profitability, okay, that's good, that's where we want it. Then we had to start thinking what size do we want to become realistically,
Mhm.
like you want to be $1 million a year company or a $3 million a year company or a $5 million company, and you can dream all this you want, but as you start to learn, you're like those steps become like pretty significant, and if you want to be a $5 million a year kind of company, you got to do a lot, and you got to sacrifice a lot still, and you got to have a certain number of employees, which means generally a certain size of building,
Yep.
and where we are in Revelstoke, like it's not a lot of room to grow physically, at least,
Yeah.
there's a lot of extra space around. There's not big warehouses like, the Vancouvers or the Calgarys or the wherevers where you can just, oh, let's go down the road and get a gigantic warehouse. It doesn't
Totally.
exist. So for me, I've really had to think about where we want this company to go, how big we want it to go. And it's good. We're on a good track. Basically, if we add another salesperson and maybe another production person or two, that'll probably be almost it. Like I'd like
Mhm.
to see it go to staff of 10 realistically, probably not much more. Hopefully around 1.5 a year, you know.
Mhm.
Oh, and then that can almost be it in a way, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think we're not just going to keep pushing for the sake of pushing. Like Jen said, Integrated's its own business. Once we get kind of enough clients or the clients we like, and we can pay for our stuff, and the staff's getting paid well, and people are happy. There's not, I don't think there's necessarily a need to keep growing it at
Mhm.
some point, right? So
I think my
Well,
personal
especially,
sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, especially because people often confuse size with profitability.
yeah, like
Doesn't
you
just
don't
because you're bigger doesn't necessarily mean you make more money.
know. And so what we've had to decide kind of also on a personal level, and since we work for this company, is well, at what point are we going to be happy? Like
Mhm.
what level essentially is going to make you happy enough, so that you pay your bills, you live your life, but you're not constantly killing yourself at work,
Mhm.
And I don't think there is a dollar value, but there's definitely like the goals that I have for this company would be to work with amazing people and have them paid, well, so that they can stay here and have a career with our company. That's a huge goal for me, and it's also so that we can live comfortably and have a work-life balance. Like I have had real jobs where I've had to work the 9 to 5, Tuesday through Saturday. Life, and I missed a lot. And I
Mhm.
don't want to have to be booking off my time, and I don't want to have to be, you know, scheduling time so that I can be with my family. I want to be able to be with my family when I want to be with my family. I want to take
Yep.
vacations when I do. And
yeah.
when we started looking at back in 2019, when we started looking at the values of what we wanted to carry forward,
Mhm.
we are closed from Christmas to New Year's on either end so that people have time to spend with their families. We are closed for August, or at least a good chunk of August. It's hard when you own your own business and you want to take a vacation, but your business is still operating because
Mhm.
there's all things, you're worried about the emails coming in, you're worried about the orders being picked up, you're worried about your staff being there, all these things. And by just being able to close, it gives everyone time to completely leave and reset and recharge. And our staff value that too. All of our staff here have kids,
Mhm.
except for one employee. Everyone else has kids, and being able to give that time to our staff to enjoy their kids on summer vacation and summer break,
Mhm.
that was a huge goal for us to be able to have for our family and to give to our staff. So, being able to just have a company where people are happy to come to work and they enjoy their job and they're getting compensated fairly for it, and we can still afford to live the lifestyle that we want. That's kind of the end game.
I agree. I think that's a better point of success for us, and I think even the people in this company, right, that work here, is I think that balance is almost more important than just the paycheck in a way, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd agree with that.
It is funny. There's like a fable about, I can't remember what it is, but it's something about a guy who like works, and then there's an old monk. It's like, okay, well, what are you working for? He's like, well, if I work here and then if I make more money, I can do this. And he's like, okay, and then what? He's like, and then if I do that, and then I can grow and I can do more, and then I can spend more time with my family. He's like, why don't you just do that now? Like you don't have to work all that hard to get more time back. Like that's completely backwards.
And that's kind of been our as well, right? Even for us, coming from, originally from Alberta or the Calgarys of the world, you're like, yeah, well, I could have worked downtown for 30 years and then I could have got that place in BC, or just move out to BC. I'm trying to, you know what I mean? Like,
do it. Yeah. Okay, so then to close off, guys, what would you say, and we could do kind of like Jen and then Mark, somebody in your situation starting either, and you can do either clothing company or printing company or everything, business, whatever you want. What do they need to know? What would you give them as advice?
We have a lot of clients that come to me and they're like, we want to start a clothing company and we want to start a brand and we're going to sell it here and we're going to give 10% of our profits to this charity and we're going to run this amazing charitable clothing company. I've never seen one last more than a year and a half. It's ruthless. If you're not physically printing your own t-shirts to make a clothing company, it's going to be really hard to be profitable.
Yeah.
I have told people to not.
Here's my advice. Do something else.
Saying that you can't put your dream of starting a clothing company because it's there, but it's hard. It's hard. You have to have the artistic ability and the attention to detail to be able to screen print and to make a quality product. And a lot of screen printers have that. They have that attention to detail. They have the drive to make their press amazing and have the best product out there, but the business sense that comes with it is usually lacking. And then the business sense people definitely sometimes don't have that attention to detail, and to find someone that has both of that is tough. It's that's probably the hardest part, to have the attention to detail to have a business like this and the business savvy to run a business like this is really hard. And I think that if anyone wants to do something, well, I'm hiring a salesperson.
Teach how to do it, then you can go start your company.
That's kind of it's tough. It's not an easy business to get into. It's not an easy business to run. And it's not an easy business to make it in. We have a lot of demand for it. There is, a lot of demand for custom clothing out there, but it's a hard one to master.
Yep.
And I don't even think we're even close to mastering it. So I'll tell you once we do.
Yeah. Well, I can't believe, and I don't think a lot of people realize the depth that you guys have gone to have like original and quality products that you can also then offer people. I think that's really valuable. And it also is bananas that that's in Revelstoke.
Yeah.
That it's not like, okay, here's like the Gildan catalog. Just pick the shirt that you want that's like a hard cotton box. Like there's so much more that you guys have done to make the clothing cool and comfortable. And
and that's where it all started. Mark wanted to have a t-shirt that fit him properly. He's a tall, slim guy, and he wanted a shirt that he could be comfortable in. And that's honestly where this whole thing started, is he wanted to have better clothing.
Yeah.
And it's where it started and where it's ended up.
Yeah.
And then Mark, what about you? What advice would you give somebody?
I would say
similar situation.
Yeah, I don't know for specific advice, but I'd say for business people, or if you wanted to start a business, or a, there's definitely a couple of things you really need to have or learn or get good at. I would say my most two valuable ones would be discipline and financial responsibility. I mean, the financial, like, businesses run on money. That's the fact. They don't run on good ideas or good intentions or whatever, right? Like, businesses run on money. You got to pay rent, you got to pay employees, you got to buy product. It's kind of simple as that. I don't care how good of idea you have is, if you're not profitable or you don't have money, it's not really going anywhere. So that financial responsibility is honestly a big thing for running a business. And that's probably something you can or should, develop or work on before you start a business. If you can't manage $1,000 or $5,000 of your own personal money, you're not going to be able to manage $50,000 or $100,000 or whatever, right? It's a really important one. I learned it, if I've been learning it as we go, which has helped me.
Yeah.
But where I really learned is after kind of our first or second year profitable years, maybe by the second kind of big profitable year, is like, okay, holy moly, for the first time ever, we have money in the bank account. Like, we're not just struggling to make bill payments every time. We actually have money in the bank account. Well, what do you do with the money now? Like, you can't just go buy snowmobiles. Like, that's like, like, you gotta, if you have 100,000 in your business account, then, well, by next year you better have more, or you're probably not running your business in the right way, right? So it's not just going and buying presents and vacations and stuff like that. That was that one to learn. So, but that only worked to get more profit is if you know how to be financially responsible.
If there is someone out there that actually does want to get into screen printing or embroidery or running their own clothing company or something like that, this industry is different too, where you can't go to college for this, you can't go to university, you can't learn how to screen print from, I'm sure you could find a course somewhere to learn how to screen print, but not on a business scale.
Yep.
And if someone does want to get into this and they really do want to learn, go to your local screen print shop, sign up for an internship, get a job there, because that's the only way that this industry is going to keep on going. Hiring new people, having them learn the craft, because it is a craft, and our production manager back there will tell you that it is an art form. Embroidery is an art form, screen printing is an art form, and it is a really cool thing. And if you want to get into it, you just got to put in the time and learn from the masters above you.
Exactly. Learn from people. Everybody's already out there doing these things. Like, connect with them. You're like, almost no one's just sitting around and coming up with this idea that no one's ever thought of and nothing's ever been made of. Like, things, reach out to them. And exactly, like, a lot of businesses need help with things. If you're interested in that type of business, whatever business it is,
it's a small industry in Canada, especially.
Yeah.
Not a lot of print shops. In the States, there's so many, just because there's so many more people down there. And if someone does want to have a trade that they can, fall back on and work at for years, or own their own business, screen printing is an interesting option. And, learning it and doing that could provide you with a career, home-based or on a scale bigger.
Yeah. Like, you can do it enough, probably, like, out of your garage, like back in the day, to support yourself.
Screen print, like, most of
that's how a lot of them are. Yeah. Screen printers kind of have they're a little bit of, I don't know, not outside, but like, they think differently, right? They're not the people that are going and just working in office jobs forever. They would way rather work in a garage by themselves, making fun stuff, and music going on and doing their thing. Like, that's the type of people they are. They want those type of things. So that's a lot of what the screen print industry is backed on, is a lot of those people.
Home-based businesses.
Yeah. Sweet. Awesome. Guys, thank you so much. We can cap it there. And I'm just so stoked on just the business you guys have built. And I think Revelstoke's really, really fortunate to have a business like yours to support all the other businesses in town. It's pretty cool. And
we won
too. Oh.
And we got this year.
Heyo! Yes. If anybody doesn't know, you guys are an award-winning business. Heck yeah.
We are now an award-winning business. So thanks to the chamber for that this year.
Yeah.
That was a really awesome nomination and win for us.
Yeah, and for our listeners, that's Industrial and Manufacturing Excellence Award that the Barons got this year. Congratulations, guys. Very well deserved. Awesome. Okay, we'll leave it there, and thanks again.
Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thanks, Eve.